one more time. We back again. We want to thank everybody for tuning in, and we want to first apologize for not being able to do the Facebook Live. So we do have it on tape. It will be on the YouTube Clipperdome Chronicles on Friday. So you will be able to see it posted on Clipperdome Chronicles YouTube on Friday. So we again want to apologize for not being able to get this Facebook Live. It was a really good day, but some things happened, got in our way. It took us off our path, but we're going to keep it moving and we're going to make it do what it do. Okay, so we want to do our disclaimer first. We want to make sure that everybody understands that what we say is no reflection on WVOL at 1470 AM. What we do, any promotions, anything that we say is solely owned by the Clipperdome Chronicles. Okay, so we want to thank everybody for tuning in. We want to say Miss Michaela. Tonight I met Miss Michaela, and she was supposed to tune in. She was interested in the show. I was with my daughter a little bit earlier, and then after I left my daughter, I met Mr. Michaela, and they have the same profession. So when I told Miss Michaela to tune into the show this evening, so now she won't be able to see it, of course, but hopefully I can get back in touch with her and she can see the show or a little bit later. If you're in your car, we want you to be careful, and if you're at home, we want you to relax. We've had the event space. We did a forum out there. I wanted to tape that and put it on before tonight, but I didn't get a chance to do that. So we want to get this event space. We want to put out the Christmas party is coming up. So we'll have that date by Wednesday. So if any of you can make it out, we would love to have you. We're going to do a RSVP on Eventbrite. So that's going to be out at the event spot, the event place. So we'll hold all the forums and everything out there. So on those promotions, we had a lot of people calling in this week. Still, the problem is we're trying to get people to interact. The problems are so close to the heart, so close to the cuff. We have to be careful of how we approach this, because it's a lot of personal business and we don't want to put it out there haphazardly and be reckless with it. So we want to make sure that everybody is respected, but we need to get the information out there because there are so many people suffering in silence. There are so many people hurting on a regular basis. We have to find a way to get this information out here so that we can stop this suffering in silence. I don't quite know how to do that, so we need people to call in. If you are a psychiatrist, a psychologist, if you are a life coach, if you are a counselor, you can come in on the show or you can give us a call. We want to make sure these phone lines are open. You can reach us at area code 615. The number is 569-1926. So if you want to send a text message tonight, because we're not live on Facebook, you can just give us a call, because we don't have that phone where you can send that in. So I want to apologize for that. But to the promotions, for the ladies, we did get the fellas. You can go to YouTube Clipperdome Chronicles. You can see the banquet that we had. We had about 25 men out. The ladies are asking, where are the fellas? We have the fellas. So all the ladies have to do now is go to YouTube Clipperdome Chronicles. You can see the banquet. We use this platform at WVOL 1470. This is where you can reach us to let you know that we're serious. We have the excerpts that we use. Also, we want to try next Sunday, this coming Sunday, at the event place. We want to put on our 30-man challenge. So that's where we have 30 men in the event space. And we're going to have ladies in the back. The ladies cannot respond. They can take notes. Once I ask the men a question, as if they're in a relationship, the women will get to see 30 men respond simultaneously. Now on the front, in the front of the room, I'll have a board. I'm going to match statistically the answers that the men are going to give me. Now understand, I don't know what they're going to say, and I don't know how they're going to answer, but our research and our data is going to support their answers because it comes from them. It comes from the barbershop. It comes from the hair salon. So we want to make sure that you tune into that, and we'll be taping that one. So ladies, you can look up on Eventbrite, or you can catch us on meetup.com, or you can catch us on Facebook, Dennis Graham Facebook Clipperdome or YouTube Clipperdome Chronicles. So we have that 30-man challenge coming up. That's one of our excerpts. I think you'll have a lot of fun with that one. So what we want to do this evening is we want to get into the show. I want to talk about truth versus what we want to hear. A lot of times, the truth hurts. Everybody says they want the truth. But do we really want to hear it? I think the truth is going to take a lot more to deal with than some of us are ready to handle. So when we say the truth versus what we want to hear in relationships, we'll start off with just an example. We'll say in a relationship, somebody may say, baby, you're the only one for me. And he or she has someone in the past or someone current that they think of on a regular basis. So when somebody tells you, you're the only one for me, that is what you want to hear. But the truth usually is that there's somebody in the past or there's somebody current that they have an eye on or they think about on a regular basis. For the ladies, if he asks you, who was your best sex partner? Ladies, he really doesn't want the answer to that. That's just something that he's saying. He wants you to tell him what he wants to hear. And you're probably going to tell him that it was him. But the truth is, 85% of the men really don't want to hear the answer to that. Because the guy that's asking that is probably not him. Fellas, when she tells you that she wants to borrow some money, she's not going to pay you back. When she says she want to borrow some money, she's telling you what you want to hear. But the truth is, when you come back to try to get that money, it's not going to be available. She's not going to pay you. And that's the truth to that matter. Fellas, she'll ask you, I want to work out. She'll say, I'm gaining a little weight. She wants you to participate in what she's doing. She wants you to help coach her through, help her prepare the meals, go to the grocery store so she can get some healthy things that she can eat. But at the end of the day, fellas, she doesn't want you to help her with that diet because she may have the holidays coming up. It may be her girlfriend's birthday, maybe a family member's birthday, and then she's going to fall off the wagon. And she's going to get mad at you for all the statements that you're going to make about that diet. So when she tells you what you want to hear, which is, baby, I want you to help me with this diet, the truth is, she really doesn't want your help. Ladies, watch out for the super potential man. The man with the super potential. He has done everything. He has had everything. Before you met him, he has done everything and has so much before you met him. But the truth is that men are consistent. Whether it be him being consistent at being good or if it's him being consistent at being bad. A man is consistent. So when he tells you all of those things that you want to hear, I've had a business. I've had a good 6-figure job. I've had a couple of houses. Everything is going right the day before he met you. And now that you're with him, he has these multitude of problems. A man is going to be consistent. And that is not all men. That is just some men. So ladies, I want you to be careful when you see the super potential man. Ladies, it's okay. The man will say to you, it's okay for you to have 3 or 4 kids that are not his. That is what he's going to tell you because that is what you want to hear. But the truth of the matter is, he does not want to date a woman with 3 or 4 kids that is not his, especially if he doesn't have any children of his own. That is the truth versus what you want to hear. The fellas, the woman will say, I don't want anything for Christmas. I don't want anything for my birthday. Fellas, don't go for that. You know that is instant death. There is no way that she means that. That is just what she's saying. But the truth is, she wants you to read her mind. And she wants you to give her all of her heart's desires. And that is the truth versus what she wants to hear. So when we get off into that, the truth versus what she wants to hear, there are a lot of things that is connected to that. That's like having a good idea with the irrational outcome. In our relationships, usually the communication is lost in translation. Usually, when we communicate, a lot of times we lose what we're trying to say because the person is not hearing us. Because when a person doesn't hear you, they're coming from their trauma, their triggers, their filters, their dysfunctions. So in our relationships, because the communication is lost in translation, we have to know that we both sometimes play a negative part in our relationships. We both have fault. It's not usually just one person. It's an accumulative of events that get us to the point where we have our discord and our arguments. So to strengthen our relationships, we want to identify our troubled areas because we all have them. First, we have to identify our trauma, our triggers, our inhibitions, our insecurities, and your areas of dysfunction. Whatever your areas of dysfunction is, you need to sit down with your partner, sit down with your spouse, sit down with your husband or your wife, and you need to identify these areas. Now that's our trauma, our triggers, our insecurities, our dysfunctions, and the things that make us go to the left in our relationships that bring a lot of discord. So the second thing that we want to identify, we want to sit down and want to identify our triggers. These are the areas that pushes our buttons. These are the things that usually take you off the scale, that put you on tilt. So we want you to understand what your traumas and triggers are, what your inhibitions and insecurities are. We want you to write those down. And then we want you to find out what triggers those things. Because a lot of times it could be somebody saying something very simple, but because we haven't looked in the mirror and we haven't done our own work, then we look at the other person as if they did something to us. But when you can identify those triggers, when you can identify when those buttons get pushed, those are the times when we can usually diffuse a very sensitive situation so it won't escalate. If you truly want a solution, you must be willing to compliment your spouse and not compete against your spouse. Again, if you're really willing to have a solution, you must be willing to compliment your spouse and not compete with your spouse. Because in the competition, somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. We don't want to compete. We want the rubber band to stretch but not pop. We want to keep it intact. And it's okay if it goes to the left, but we also have to know how to keep everything in the middle of the road. We want to remember after we identify these things, we want to make sure we're clear on the facts versus the point. We have to remember, like video number 9, that's the point versus the facts. That you can have a ton of facts, but you both must have the same point. For instance, you can say, she talks too much. She can say, you don't pay enough of the bills. All of those things could be true. But if you're talking about the car not running, you need to stick to the point. If she drives the car and he's driving something else and your car is broken, the point is that you need to get your car fixed. But because you drive that car on a regular basis, sisters, you need to understand that all of those facts that you're presenting has nothing to do with the point. So if we want to find out what the point is, you have to ask somebody, what did you hear me say? You ask this question. What did you hear me say? When a person hears you talking, you need to ask them in their words, what did you hear me say? When the person can repeat back in their words, not what you said verbatim, when they can repeat back to you what they heard you say, then you know that you have the same point. Now, if they don't tell you what you're saying, then you can correct that wrong, and you don't have to have these facts and then have a different point, because that's going to bring the discord, that's going to inflame and escalate the argument, and it's going to make it very difficult for you guys to resolve this issue. So after you know that you both have the same common point, I want you to sit down and I want you to then make a list for a plan of execution for the both of you. I want you and him or her to sit down, and I want you to come up with the plan that you both agree on. Not a plan that she agrees on. Not a plan just that he agrees on. a plan that you can both sit down and govern together to where somebody is not ruling. You want to make sure that you are governing and not controlling. Because together when you sit down, the both of you can come up with something that makes sense to the both of you. So now after you come up and you sit down and you govern, I want both of you guys to be able to come up with a timeline. So now if you're going to execute, you want to sit down and talk about the things that need to be done that you both agree on because you govern. After you govern and you come up with that list, I want you to then come up with a timeline. So maybe the issue, it could be 2 issues. It could just be 1 issue. It could be a list of things. It could be 20 or 30 different things. So I want you to make sure that when you sit down and govern, that you can come up with a timeline of the list of things in which you need to execute. So if the process is a long, lengthy one, you can sit down for 6 months. It might take 9 months. But I want you to sit down and have a time where you sit down and dates and where you check your spouse's paper. Again, that's video number 26 on the Clipperdome Chronicles. It says, do not be careful checking your own paper. You want to be careful doing that because when you check your own paper, you know your mind and you know your heart. And everybody is not on the inside of you because usually the inner me is the enemy. So we want to make sure that you understand that when you're checking out your own paper, that's coming from your experiences. You're using your triggers, your trauma, your insecurities, your inhibitions, the things that upset you. That's where you're coming from when you're checking that paper. But when you hand that paper over to somebody else, again, this is video number 26 on the Clipperdome Chronicles. When somebody else checks that paper, they're going to have to take your temperature. They're going to have to check your blood. They're going to have to check your pulse. And when they check it, I guarantee you there's going to be a different markings on that paper after it gets checked. So when we approach the relationships, we have the process. We talked about identifying the triggers and the traumas, the insecurities, the inhibitions. And then we talked about understanding how those get triggered. And then we discussed what we're going to do to make sure that our partner is having the same point as we do and not just giving us facts. And they also have the same point. And then we talked about sitting down, governing, making a list so that we can sit down together and see what we agree on how to approach these problems. So after we make that list, we want to make sure that both of you agree and then we put a timeline of execution. If it's going to take you 3 weeks, 6 months, or 2 years. And along the way, if the process takes longer than 90 days, we want to make sure that we have a timeline in place to where we can help each other make sure the execution is moving along properly. This is to help us get a cohesive timeline, a cohesive relationship, so we can have a healthy, viable option. Now, on top of that, we want to make sure that we understand, we talked about accountability. Accountability is making sure you check you first before you start pointing fingers. Accountability is huge because a lot of us do a lot of judging. When we judge, a lot of times we're not using accountability. Because if you're being accountable and you're taking care of yourself and working on your insecurities, your inhibitions, your trauma, your triggers, then... Okay, sorry about that. We back. So what if you couldn't use that pink tornado? What if you couldn't speak and judge until you took care of everything that you know that you need to work on? Because that enemy is in the inner me. So before we start pointing fingers, before we start judging, we have to look into ourselves. We have to look deep down into ourselves. We have to get that mirror and be accountable for who we are and what we do. Fellas, we get those calls. A lot of times I get the brothers, they call me, and when they're upset with their wife or their woman, it's because of communication. The communication is the super information highway that leads to many different avenues, to many different exits, many different destinations. So when she's communicating, fellas, we do have to come up with some tools and some resources to understand who our woman is. We don't want to keep blaming her for being who she is. That is the core of who she is. She is a woman. Women are going to communicate. just like men are going to be practical and physical. That is just how it goes. We want to look into some other things. We want to talk about the universal principles of a man and a woman, the core of a man and a woman. And we want to compare that to a university. Now, when I say that, I want to say that the core of a man and a woman, you can know the surface of women or men, but then the core is a specific. So in a university, you can master mathematics, only mathematics. You can master science, only science. You can master English and only English. Those are core concepts. But the surface is the universe. And the university is like the universe in this example. So when you go to the university, you can master a core topic or subject. But on the surface, it's hard to master the universe because it changes. Like we used examples before. On the surface, geographically, wherever you go on the first face of the earth, the geographical locations can change with the landmass. You can have only water with islands. We can go somewhere we have only sand and desert, and it's a lot of heat. We can go somewhere where it's tropical. We have beautiful waterfalls. We have beautiful greenery. We have the rainforest. You can have those different things and they change. So let's be careful when we look at mastering the universe and trying to look at the university. The university is like the universe. It's very, very vast. Nobody can master the universe, just like you can't master the university. So we want to take that to the university. When we're in school, because you have a PhD in engineering, that doesn't mean you've mastered the university. That means you've mastered a subject, a core subject at the university. The university is made up of many different core subjects, and you are good at only one. We take our education today, and because we have a PhD in one area, we think that we're well versed in the university. And we want to use that same ideology when we're talking about universal principles. Just because you are the best woman you can be, that is the core. You have mastered that feminine energy. But now you have to move to a different subject. You have to deal with men, the masculine energy. Have you mastered that? Because you are only good at the feminine energy. Try and find you a man or a mature man that has mastered his masculine energy. And then you can be just as well versed from his knowledge. And you can take his experience and you can put that and couple it together so that you can have more things in your repertoire. So you can be more equipped to deal with healthy, viable relationships. So when we say the universe and the university, we deal with the university every day. That's our formal education. And I want to compare that to the universe. Both of them are very vast. In most of our universities, there are at least 50 different core subjects that you can take. And we'll compare that to our universe, where there's usually 50 or 60,000 different places that you can go and different things that you have to discover and understand. So when we're dealing with the universe and the university, I want to take those two comparisons so that we can understand how we look at things from a more core standpoint versus the surface. Because we think that because we have knowledge, that gives us experience. So we'll take our young people. When we're talking to our elders, or if we're talking to our mom or dad, and we are the child, when you get to a certain age, you think that your knowledge can supersede their experience. The problem with that is, knowledge will never supersede experience. Because knowledge, if I take you to the best medical library known to man, and you read all of the books, that does not make you a surgeon. In order to be a surgeon, you must go to medical school. And after you leave medical school, you have to be a resident. The resident is the practical application to the theoretical process. So back again, we're to universal and university principles. But this is dealing with knowledge versus experience. And I'm trying to tie those in. The hardest thing about making a decision is deciding what to decide. There are so many opinions. There's so many perspectives. There's so many points of views. There are so many facts. There are so many points. The hardest part about deciding what you're going to do is deciding which one to pick. What will your perspective be? How will you approach? So we need to look at these things. We're going to put this out here. So I wish that we can open up these phone lines now is what we can do, because we don't have the Facebook Live on. So if somebody can hear this, you heard something that you like, you heard something that you don't like, if you want to call in and give us a response, you can reach us at 615. The number is 227-1470. Again, that number is 615-227-1470. We live in a feel-good right now society. When I take the calls, a lot of people will say, hey, Dennis, he made me upset. He did A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. Or she'll say, hey, Dennis, he made me upset. He did A, B, C, and X, Y, Z. When somebody upsets you, you have to understand that you can't always feel good. The universe is filled with duality. We know that the Creator made the direct opposite of everything. If he made big, he had to make tall. Excuse me, if he made big, he had to make small. If he made rich, he had to make poor. If he made black, he had to make white. If they have male, you have to have female. You have to understand that duality is part of life. If you want peace, you have to prepare for a war. That doesn't mean a physical altercation. It could be a war within your mind, a war within your spirit, a war within, well, in a relationship. It's not necessarily a physical situation. So duality, when we, in reference to a feel-good right now society, a lot of people have to be careful about wanting to feel good all the time. That takes us to another piece that we have when we talk about the videos on YouTube. It's one of the videos is you have to become uncomfortable to become comfortable. That's video number 10 on the YouTube Clipperdome Chronicles. Becoming uncomfortable to become comfortable could be an instance to where we might want to work out. So we know when we first go to the gym, the first 2 to 3 weeks, maybe to 90 days, we're going to be sore, it's going to hurt. The routine is going to be strenuous. We have to change what we do. And we have to put that into our busy daily schedule to make sure that we can work out and we can lose that weight or get to our desired goal. So we have to become uncomfortable before we can become comfortable. So when we living in that feel-good right now society, because systems and organizations are idealistic, because they tell us we're supposed to have the best things in each case, in each situation, we don't want to go into that believing that that's what life is, because we all know that that's not how it works. So we want to make sure that we don't have that good idea with that irrational outcome. Because if you think that life is going to make you feel good all the time, you need to be careful, because that's probably not going to happen on a regular basis. I took a call, and it was pertaining to a forum that I did in Atlanta some years ago. And I asked the group, I said, if I give you everything that you want, would you know it when I gave it to you? And then after I gave it to you, would you know that you had it after I gave it to you? So I'm going to say that again. If I give you everything that you want, would you know it when you had it? And then after you get it, would you know that you got it? So when I ask that question, it's kind of like a why question. It's kind of like if you say you want a new car, and I'll ask you, why do you want it? And you'll say, because I want to look good, right? I want to ride better, or I don't want it to break down, or, for whatever your reason is. So after you give me your reasons, then I ask you why again. And I keep asking you why. And I keep asking you why. Because I'm trying to get down to the core meaning of what it is you're really trying to get at when you buy that car. I used to have a car dealership. Most car purchases is made from impulse. It's not a well thought out plan. Most people with used cars, they buy cars when they need them. Most people that buy new cars, they buy them because they think they deserve them. So when you ask a person and you keep asking why, you'll usually get down to the real core meaning of what they were trying to do when they made that purchase on that vehicle. So having that understanding of selling cars, I had that conversation, and that's where that question came up from. So all these things are relating to the relationships that we have. So we want to try to be as introspective as we can. We want to think these things out, because the problems that we're having right now is that the relationships are in disrepair. It's in disarray. It's a lot of people hurting. I have my sisters, some of them are saying that they don't need a man. I have some men saying that they're tired of women. So where is this coming from when we were created to be social creatures? If we were created to be social creatures, how can we not want to be around the people who we were created for? So now we attach ourselves to the computer. We attach ourselves to the cell phone. We attach ourselves to the surface and the superficial, and we leave in the core. There's nothing wrong with the internet. We all love it. We have to have it. It's a staple in our society. We all have to have a cell phone. We all need the technology from time to time. But we have to cut off. We have to disconnect. We have to get back to that point where we get with people, because that is organic. I love the old movies. I used to watch The Twilight Zone. And there's a movie on The Twilight Zone where there was a gentleman, he was into technology. So for the old schoolers, y'all know that The Twilight Zone was out in the 50s and the 60s. It was real hot back then. So for the younger people, I want you to look up, Google The Twilight Zone. So this gentleman was creating machines that replaced people. So he had somebody that was a very integral part of his organization. So this individual came up to him and says, hey, we're laying off too many people. He said, so who's going to buy your product if you keep making the technology to where people are not needed to create it? Because somebody has to still have a job to be able to buy it. So the man, of course, was a mad genius. He was a mad scientist, if you will. So he kept creating technology. And he ended up getting rid of his right-hand man. So when he got rid of this right-hand man, he found himself by himself. And so then the machine, he started talking to the machine. So, of course, the machine couldn't give him a response because the machine only did what he told it to do. And this is kind of indicative of the things that we do today with our electronics. We don't need anybody to open up the door. We can hit a button and it opens up. We don't need anybody to cook food. We can call Uber Eats. You don't even have to have a car. You can just call a Lyft or an Uber. These things that we're using in technology is beautiful. But the more things change, the more they have to stay the same. We need to be careful about overindulging in these situations, because at the end of the day, it's about the social connection amongst people. The technology is beautiful. Let's use it. It is a tool. It is a resource. It is not the end-all, be-all, cure-all, because it cannot reproduce. What we are organically is a perpetuated reproduction of ourselves. Having the technology is a good thing, but we want to be careful about taking these superficial things and putting them in place of things that are organic. I was out and we were listening to a lecture, and we were talking about the sisters with the hair. We have a mentoring program down on 17th in Charlotte. Brother Tay McGee is running that down there, doing an excellent job with those young brothers. And I asked the brothers one day, I said, could you solve the education problem in the United States in 30 days? Now, understand these are juveniles. We're talking to people from 11 to 17. So they all look puzzled. And then of course, they said no. So I asked somebody, I said, who's good in math? So one of the young brothers raised his hand. I said, I want you to pull out your phone. So he pulled out his phone. I said, I want you to add up these numbers. I said, how much is the average cell phone? I asked the whole class. They gave me a number. They said $100. I said, okay, take 100 times 200,000. And this is a low number because we know there are way more cell phones than 200,000 cell phones because it's 350, 400 million people in the United States. And at least probably 2 cell phones per person. So I asked him to add up 200,000 times $100. So of course he couldn't read that number to me, so I told him to put that to the side and write it down. Then I asked him, I said, on the accessories for 200,000 phones, if it's a cord, if it's a phone cover, or a lens cover for the face of the phone, how much do people spend on that? They gave me a number. They averaged out $50 a phone. So we said, let's take 50 times 200,000. So then I said, how much is the service at the end of the month per cell phone on average? Because everybody's cell phone is different. Some people may pay $25. Some people may pay $150. So a difference. We have a difference in that. So we took an average. I said, so take $75 times 200,000. Put that number to the side. So as we kept adding these numbers up on the low side, they knew proof positive without a doubt in 30 days we could solve the education problem in the United States. But it's all about the approach. Because what we talk about at the Clipperdome Chronicles, we don't talk about what you need to do. We want to show you how to do it. There's another way to think about what you think about every day. We can solve many, many problems. But we need to understand that it's not what you're doing. It's how you're doing it sometimes. But because we deal with adults, we want to make sure that we don't disrespect anybody. We want to make sure that we have things in place to where we understand that they have their own experiences, their own beliefs, their own culture, their own background. So when we're talking about relationships, we want to use different universal principles. And we want to put those on the table, and then we want to bring it all together so we can discuss these relationships. So now we want to get to some of our sponsors this evening, so we need to pay some bills. So our sponsors, we have Miss Kiera. We have Candles by Kiera. Miss Kiera, you can reach her at www.candlesbykiera.com. Candles is spelled Kandles by Kiera. Kiera is spelled KIERRA.com. Or you can reach her on Instagram at Candles by Kiera. Miss Kiera, we had Judge Calloway was on. I think it was last week, and I was talking about Miss Kiera, and she knew her, and I saw Miss Kiera on the news. She was with Kenny Smooth. They were taking pictures, so I think a lot of people is proud of her, and I didn't know that after I met her until about 2 or 3 weeks from today. So now I know that she's out here and she's doing her thing, so we want to support Miss Kiera. She started off making organic soy candles for her dad. So she made her first candle for her dad on Father's Day. So she wanted to make him, she liked the chocolate chip and milk candles. So she made that first one for her dad, and that spent her off into her own business. And I met her mom, Miss Perkins. Hello, Miss Perkins. Hey, Miss Kiera. I hope y'all are doing well. We want to move on to Murray's Heating and Cooling. Mr. Royce Murray. He's been in business for 20 years. He services, repairs, and installs HVAC equipment. You can reach Mr. Murray at area code 615. The number is 669-9077. Again, you can reach Mr. Murray at area code 615-669-9077. We have lovingdigitals.com. Loving Digital's obituaries,